Well, I hope everybody had an absolutely amazing Thanksgiving weekend. I just finished recording a whole session for us this week, and then it dawned on me I was not, I did not have the speakers on or the microphone, so nobody could hear me, which I imagine is going to be a little bit frustrating for some people. There were a couple things that I wanted to talk about this weekend or this week for like the rest of the semester, what to expect, different things like that. And one of the things I wanted to address was well, actually, there's several things. One is going to be the most recent assignment. I wanted to talk about that. A couple people have turned things in and did not see the directions apparently. So I wanted to go over that and show an example of somebody who read the directions and followed them really well. So I wanted to share that. I also wanted to talk about our final project, which is the Mali Empire project, the art for the Mali Empire. And I wanted to talk about that in the context of what to work with, what kinds of things you can do and how to approach that. Let's see, and I'm trying to pull up. One of the things that we talk about is the tools of artistic critique. And I wanted to touch on that. I wanted to touch on the elements of critical thinking. Sorry, already doing that. But I also wanted to talk about Sundiata and the art of the Mali Empire. I wanted to talk about the brainstorming that you did regarding your final project, which is in Module 7. And then I also wanted to talk about the final, I wanted to show some of the final PowerPoints that people had done and share that with you. And I think what I want to do to start with is show you a really good example of the street art. Oh, let's see. We have the street art, but we also have a good example of the Surrealist strategies assignment. I wanted to show those as well. So there's several things to do, and I'm sorry I'm just a little bit discombobulated. I am a little bit annoyed at myself for recording an entire lecture without any sound. It looks like the sound is good on this, so I think we'll be just fine. But that's great because I wanted to share presentations and stuff. If this is a live class, what we would be doing is I would have you bring your final projects to class and work on them while we're together for the next couple of weeks. And since this is not a live class, since we're recorded, we'll just talk about it. So the class sessions will probably be a little bit shorter. And instead of a little over an hour, they'll be a little bit under an hour, probably, for the next couple of weeks. And I am trying to finish up grading over the next couple of days, so you can see all that. And I wanted to remind you that at any point, well, there's a couple things. One is, I don't want you to feel like you've lost out on something if it's late. I don't really, every single person who's let me know, hey, something is going to be late, I was like, no problem, take your time, do it. And if you need extra time on something, that's not a big deal. The only exceptions to that are, if you do not believe you're going to be able to get, or if you believe you will not be able to get projects done by the end of the term, you will need to work with the accommodations office on campus and see what they can do to help you so you can have extra time to do stuff. In this class, I don't have problems with you turning things in late. That's not an issue. You're taking an online course because life happens, and I get that. That's totally understandable. As things come in, I grade them. So I don't want you to, I have had several people write in and say, hey, can I still turn this in? You know, I know it's late. Yeah, that's no problem. Go ahead and turn it in. Another thing I really want you to be aware of is the fact that uh, any of the points that you get are not final. You can redo and resubmit any of the stuff. Things like at the beginning of the class and several times throughout, we've talked about HEIC format files. My computer cannot read. It cannot access them. I say that in the syllabus, don't turn it in like that. And I've said it several times on these video calls that we've had. What the problem is your phone, if it's an Android phone, I believe, that's the default setting for the file type. And so it will submit things to Canvas like that. And my computer won't read it. My system does not recognize that file. So what I've done throughout the term is whenever that happens, I just put a 0 in there with a note saying, please resubmit. And most of you do, like within, I think the fastest turnaround time is somebody sent a resubmitted in like 12 minutes as soon as they saw that. And I really appreciate that. But that's also true of other things. If I say, like, for example, the street art thing with the paste, we'll go over that and we'll touch on that. If you did not do part of the process and you're missing the points for that, you can redo the assignment and turn it in, making sure that you follow the directions. I mean, I don't mind doing that. Then I'll regrade it. Any of the quizzes, you can retake the quizzes 30 times if you need to in order to get a perfect score. And that is totally fine. So if you are missing something on any of the quizzes, go through and check. If you're missing any of the points, just retake it. You know, and I have no problem with that at all. And that is true of absolutely all of the assignments. Now, it is important if you have a grade, and that's why I'm trying to get everything done in the next couple of days grade-wise, because then you will have a couple weeks to redo stuff. Because if it's December 11th or whatever, then it's going to be too late to redo anything. So double check everything and return stuff in if you need to. Another way to get your points up is to make sure that you've watched all the attendance videos. And if you're listening to this and you see that in your Canvas to-do list that you have some attendance videos you haven't watched yet or turned in yet, do that. And it is very important when you do the attendance videos that you pay attention to the attendance video enough that you can write down 3 things that you've learned. If you just read the rest of the Canvas module and you don't bother watching the video and you just say things that I say in the Canvas module, then you're not going to get credit for it. You know, you need to watch the actual video and write down 3 things that you learned from watching the video. You don't even need to actually watch it. You can just listen to it. As long as you write down those things, then it'll be good, and you can get the attendance for it. Now, another thing to pay attention to is that there's been a couple times where I'll get on a roll and I'll grade you for the wrong assignment. And sometimes that's if you do the extra credit thing for the attendance video and I don't give you those points, what I need you to do is email me and let me know so I can take care of it. And when I get those emails, as soon as I can, I go through and revamp the grade. And then I'll either email you back and say, okay, I got it, or double check. And sometimes I have noticed that I've gotten a couple emails where I did redo the grade. The person didn't see it. And once they refreshed their Canvas page, then everything showed up correctly. So those are a couple easy ways to deal with not getting all the points that you want. For the bibliography, when you do that, I would look at the outline, look at the steps that you're supposed to take, look at the assignment description. For every online source, you need to include the accessed on indicator at the end, the accessed on phrase. We've talked about that. You also need to make sure that you use MLA citation format, if you're citing anything. And most of the time, if you're missing points, it's usually because you didn't follow the directions, or you didn't really put a lot of effort in, which is kind of sad. Like, for example, for this street art, you will not get credit if you use an online font and print something out on your printer. You need to be creating your own item to be pasted onto the background image. And if it's printed, and I can tell that when the font is consistent enough that the same letters are exactly this, similar letters are exactly the same, then I know you used an online font and it doesn't count. So just redo the assignment. Some of the ones that have been turned in for the street art, they missed half the assignment, and I will talk about that in just a minute. Now, I do want to show something that can be kind of confusing, and if you don't get all the points, then now you'll know why. I wanted to share with you the Surrealist strategies. Here's a really good submission for Surrealist strategies that I wanted to share with you. Now, if we look at this, remember in the Surrealist strategies, you basically are creating these randomized word strings for the sentences. And then you create drawings using those sentences, and then you randomize the sentences to the drawings again, so that even if, whatever the original sentence was for this, now the title is going to be something completely different. So that's that part of that. And then remember the paper with the 3 folds, and then you create head, body, and feet. And this person did that. So I wanted to show you. So they included the 5 sentences. This is absolutely great, random. And then they did the 5 drawings with the new 5 sentences on them, and that's awesome. And then they did the 3 drawings with the folds and the 3 animals for it. And this is exactly the right kind of submission. Now, if you have to submit multiple files, remember, you need to submit all the files at the same time. If you submit 4 out of 5 files and then submit the 5th one later, Canvas rewrites everything else you previously submitted on that assignment with that new file that you're submitting as an addition. The only exception to this is if you are able to submit files in this area, the comment area. You can attach files on there. I would recommend, if it's images and stuff like that, the computer has less of a problem if you just resubmit all the files at the same time. A couple people did like 4 out of 5 submissions, and then they'd submit the 5th one and it rewrote the other 4, so they didn't get credit. You need to go back and just submit everything for the assignment at the same time, so that Canvas recognizes it's all at the same time. Again, if you submit one file, it will rewrite everything else that had been previously submitted on that assignment. Now, I wanted to share a really good example of the street art. So this is a really good example. I'll tell you why. As we look at this, the person has done, on their watercolor paper, they painted a background for the street art. And that's exactly what you want to do. A couple of people just took pieces of scrap cardboard and pasted the street art to that. And that means that they miss half the points because they did not create or generate a background. Now, the way that the person did this background was kind of fun. It looks like to me that they just applied a couple different layers of watercolor and different textural patterns, just randomizing it, and that is awesome. They could have done something else, but I'm thinking it's watercolor just because of the paint over spray there, or overlap. And then after that, they took some different paint and painted in the lines between the bricks, which is perfect. And it looks like they may have even used spray glue and put some sawdust on it or something like that to give it more texture. If you spend just a couple of minutes, you can go to YouTube and see, well, how do I make a textured watercolor effect, and that will show you. So that's what you need to do. You need to generate a background for the first part of the project. And I'll show you that where it says it. On the instructions, it says making the fake street art surface. And you can do all sorts of different things, but you need to use your various art materials to create the illusion of a street art surface. So you're not just using cardboard, you're not just using repurposed anything. Some of the things that I've seen in the past, in addition to the paint that we just saw, is that I have seen people get butcher paper and make rubbings using several different colors of crayons to make rubbings of different surfaces. Like this looks really good. If you do have a relatively larger sheet of paper, at least a foot by a foot, and make a rubbing over cement and brick and a couple other textures like that. Maybe it might be good to do cement, then asphalt, and then brick, and do that in 3 different colors. That gives you a good background. You can also paint it like we just saw, and there's lots of tutorials that you can find to get different kinds of cool texture on YouTube. One thing you can do is put down watercolor and then put plastic wrap over that. And the plastic wrap isn't going to be smooth, it's going to be wrinkly. And when the watercolor dries, it's going to dry in a pattern to mimic that. You can also do the same thing like that with aluminum foil. When the watercolor is wet, you can also sprinkle on salt or sawdust. Both of those things will do different textures. And then after that dries, you rub the salt or sawdust off and then put another layer of watercolor on and do it again. That can give it a really cool texture. Those kinds of things, using colors that are consistent with outdoor, urban, or cityscape textures. That can look really good. You can also do rubbings on wood, for example. Put your paper over an interesting wood texture and make a rubbing of that, and use that as the background even for watercolor if you want to. So that is the first part, and most people that have been turning stuff in missed that first part. Now, we also need to make wheat paste. People have been pretty good about making the wheat paste, but the second part is creating an image that you've generated, and you can be your name, a cartoon, or even something realistic that you've done on paper. So you're making an image to wheat paste, and then you cut it out. And you need to make it big enough that we can tell what it is, and small enough that it will fit on that background that you textured, that you created. Let's see, we're going to show this again. And you see this, they used their 8x12 pad to create the street texture, and then they made their name on a piece of paper that they were able to apply with wheat paste. And this is what it looks like. This is excellent. This is just exactly right. And then they applied it to it. So that is the 2 different parts: image to wheat paste, and then you create the wheat paste and you glue it on. Now, if you have one and not the other, then you'll get half points. If you're having a problem, I have actually had people glue this to their driveway or the wall outside their home, and you don't want to do that. You're making a surface to glue this to. And there's several different ways to do that. All it takes is just a little bit of research on YouTube, and you can find several different ways to create a texture. If you're gluing your wheat paste image, which is your name or something else like that, onto just a regular piece of cardboard, then you've missed that first part. If you have just the cardboard, or if you have just the background and you haven't created a wheat paste image, then, or an image to wheat paste, you've missed the other half of this. Now, I also have seen a couple people have downloaded things where they've used a printer. It looks like they used an online, like a font for the printer. Even though it looks kind of hand-drawn, the letters are exactly identical. the same letters are identical in every respect, so that means it's a font. Other people have just downloaded something that they found online. That does not count. It needs to be an image that you make yourself. Now, if you downloaded something and you're tracing it, then that would be okay. I'd recommend against that. But what I'm looking at is this right here. You need to generate that image. And you need to generate the background. Now, if we go back and look at this, Crystal wrote her name, and it looks like she used either paint or markers, and this is perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be illusionary. It doesn't have to be a perfect photorealistic cat or pineapple or whatever. It can just be your name like this. And Crystal did a great job of doing this. So this is just right, this submission. So I want you to be mindful of that. I want you to be mindful if you did not get very good points, it's because you're missing a couple of those elements. Either you're missing the background, or you're missing this, or you printed this part out on a printer and it doesn't demonstrate your own creation. So all those things are going to dock you points. So if that's the case, what I want you to do is go back and redo it, and I will grade those tonight, and then exactly what you need to redo. Okay. So I want to, now we've got that out of the way, I want to share with you a couple of the presentations that people have turned in. And I think that these turned out, you're watching them for the first time with sound with me, and this is just like we're doing it in class. So let's watch a couple and see how they go. All right. I think that turned out really well. That was a really nice presentation. We're going to watch another one. Um, let's see, I'm going to pause that. All right, here we go. We're going to watch another one. This is on Maya Lin.
My presentation is on Maya Lin. She was born October 5th, 1959, and in the US, specifically in Ohio. When I first saw her art, I was very drawn to it because it's something that I can't relate to. So when I look at her art, I just see every like individual piece of it. And artists in general, all I feel like are very good at being patient with their artwork. And I feel like I'm not patient with a lot of things, especially art. So I really enjoyed her style because it was crazy to me how patient she is. Like, if you look closely at this one, it almost looks like marbles where each like individual piece was placed exactly where it was supposed to be. And then these next ones that look like they're made out of wood, like each individual piece has a specific place, which I think is really cool and very impressive for how much patience she has to create these structures. And I would describe her artwork with repetition and pattern. And this is a library that she helped design. And as you can see in like these wooden, like the different floor levels, all those like wooden pieces remind me of those past ones, of how she pays so much attention to detail in all of the artwork that she creates. And it really like builds a harmony between her pieces because they're almost like identifiable to her because of her specific style. And then this one with like the waves in the grass, it almost looks like a fake world because of how cool it is that the hills, like the mountains, are matching the grass because of the hills that she somehow created in the grass. I also think it's very impressive how diverse her portfolio is. She has natural architecture and then buildings. She's helped create monuments, and her website is very impressive because of how diverse and cool it is, I think. And in some of the videos, she talks about how she was raised in a household of ideas where you fight for your ideas, and that helped her create a motto of never giving up, which is very impressive because, again, with her patience and never giving up. And she talks about her competition for one of these architectural monuments that she's helped build is she was one of the only women in architecture at the time. When she was in college, she said she was the only woman in the classes that she was taking, which I just think is super cool. And it wasn't even like a cool thing to do back then, if you know what I mean. So I was just very impressed with her style because right away I was like, I don't have the patience to do that. And she is very meticulous and uses a lot of pattern, repetition, creativity, and a lot of symbolism too. And I really admire her work for that.
All right, that was excellent too. That was, both of those were really well done. Now I have a couple others that I wanted to show. Let's see how many more. This is interesting. Let's see if we can find those other ones. Ah, there we go. Okay. I am trying to get to the point where I can share this with you. There we go. Here we are. Now, let's see. Okay. Sorry, my mouse froze up for just a second. All right, here we go.
Hello. This is my presentation on the artist Jeff Koons. Pictured here on top of the slide. The first sculpture that I chose for this artist is the balloon dog. The balloon dog is said by the artist to represent breath and human life. I think it really does convey that, but it might just be my opinion. But the fact that he chose a balloon dog is probably the reason why I think that it conveys that sort of meaning. I also think that the color and the material that he used glazed porcelain, and this very beautiful blue just conveys, I think it just conveys like a sense of serenity. He mostly makes sculptures, and this sculpture is supposed to be a contrast between the everyday and the monumental. He did make a smaller version of this sculpture. However, it was sadly destroyed about 2 years ago at an art festival in Miami. But this very big one still remains intact. The next sculpture is the puppy sculpture. This is a very large and very hard to maintain sculpture. The artist said that it's supposed to represent love, warmth, and happiness. And I do get that from this sculpture. Between the combination of flowers and the puppy, specifically the white terrier, which the artist chose because of its very innocent appearance. And I think it all just combines together to make this very loving and very sweet sculpture, even though it is ginormous and hard to maintain because obviously the flowers aren't going to be the same in every season. So it's a very difficult sculpture to maintain, but it is a very beautiful sculpture. And it does convey the meaning that he wants it to convey. This is The Gazing Ball, which is one of his most popular paintings. I guess you could say it really isn't a painting. It's more like a sculpture kind of a thing. Because he takes famous paintings and he puts a hand-blown glass ball in the center on this on a little platform, and he tries to convey a sense of 360-degree to the viewer of the art piece behind the ball. He also attempts to combine the 2D with the 3D. And I think that this is a very well done type of sculpture because it does give a sense of like 3D. You're looking into this glass ball, and it's very, I think it conveys what he's trying to convey. And that's it. So this is my citations page, and that is pretty much it.
All right, that is excellent. That was another really, really good one. Now I'm trying to find. There we go. Okay, here's another one that we're going to
Everyone.
All right, the sound started before I got over there, so I couldn't share it with you. Okay, now I'm going to do this. And these, like I said, if this was our live class, then we would be showing these, we would be sharing these or playing them in class. So that's why I'm sharing these. I'm going to start at the beginning again, and here we go.
Hey everyone, today for my slideshow, I'm doing it on Louise Bourgeois. So Louise Bourgeois was born in Paris in 1911, was a renowned artist known for her large-scale sculptures and installations inspired by her own memories and experiences. Her work often deals with childhood trauma, abandonment, opposing forces, and domestic life, challenging the conventional role of women in the 20th century. This is probably one of my favorite quotes from Louise Bourgeois that she mentioned in an interview. It says, "I transform nasty work into good, transform hate into love." It's probably my favorite quote from her because it just shows how she truly is in touch with her own emotions. Next is her artwork. The first one is Mammon. Mammon is one of Louise Bourgeois' most famous and iconic works. It stands over 30 feet tall and is made of steel and marble. It explores the spider as a central theme, offering viewers a comprehensive experience as they walk beneath and interact with the mammoth-sized artwork. She describes the meaning behind this giant spider and says, "First, Mammon is a French word for mother. Bourgeois explained that the spider is an ode to my mother. She's my best friend. Like a spider, my mother was a weaver. My family was in the business of tapestry restoration, and my mother was in charge of the workshop. Like spiders, my mother was very clever. Spiders are friendly presences that eat mosquitoes. We know that mosquitoes spread diseases and are therefore unwanted. Spiders are helpful and protected, just like my mother." Another one of her artworks is called The Blind Leading the Blind. So The Blind Leading the Blind is an early sculpture constructed from pointed wooden planks attached to a flat beam. The whole represents her complicated feelings about both her parents and her own experience of parenthood as both a delicate and sometimes confining act of balance. Louise likened this piece to a table, inspired by early memories of spending time underneath one herself, from which she could only spy her parents' legs as they moved throughout a room. Moreover, she recalls this memory as an unpleasant one, as she felt alienated from her parents and sought refuge under a furniture. The next great artwork from Louise Bourgeois is this artwork called Cell, Eyes, and Mirrors. As we know, Louise Bourgeois is mainly known for her large-scale sculptures and her installations, and this is one of them. So this is one of the works of the Cell series, which Louise began to create in 1989. Louise Bourgeois' Cell series is considered to be something of an autobiography. The artist's version of personal therapy is to overcome a childhood filled with anxiety, pain, and fear of abandonment. As a material, Bourgeois used metal structures in the form of cages, inside of which she placed various materials, objects, and even furniture. Each of these things is used for a reason and carries a particular meaning and emotional load, while the presence of a person is limited behind metaphors. The central place in the Eyes and Mirrors installation is occupied by huge marble eyes, which reflected in several mirrors create strong perspective distortions and an eerie atmosphere. And that is a little about Louise Bourgeois, her life, and her amazing artwork. I hope you enjoyed it, and here's my credits and sources. Thank you.
Another one that was very nicely done. Oh, sorry. There we go. All right.
Hello, everyone. Today,
Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. This is Isaac Cordell.
I will be talking about the artist that I picked, Isaac Cordell. He uses many different types of materials and makes many different forms of art, but is best known for his tiny figurine sculptures. These sculptures are called cement eclipses and only stand a few inches tall, but make a big statement. He also occasionally makes the scene for these figurines if he's placing them in a museum or something similar, but mostly places them out in nature or around cities. One such installation where he made the scene is a work building that kind of resembled a prison. He was trying to make the point that many people see free time as just kind of a pause between tasks, and that work has consumed a lot of people's lives. He called this installation 24/7. He has placed his installations all over the world, including in New York City, Montreal, Canada, Berlin, Germany, Bogota, Colombia, and in his country of current residence, Belgium. He uses his art to magnify simple things like you see here. Suddenly, cracked paint in a wall gives on a whole new perspective. He finds places that, along with his sculptures, tell a new story or remind us of ongoing issues and hot topics, if you will. He actually leaves these sculptures once he places them because he says that art is meant to be shared and is for everyone. Along with the sculptures themselves, his photography is also a form of art. It helps show the kind of perspective he is trying to achieve with his installations. Here in this picture, it almost seems real life size, but in the real world, his figurines stand only about 6 inches tall. Cordell likes to refer to his sculptures as interventions, and that definitely makes sense, especially in his installations regarding social, environmental, and political issues. This installation here is called Electoral Campaign and was placed in Berlin, Germany. Other topics that he has touched on include climate change and pollution, with one of his most well-known works being titled Waiting for Climate Change. He actually has several installations with that same name, one in Nantes, France, and another in Beaufort, Belgium. In France, it is comprised of 14 floating sculptures that move with the wind and based on currents of the moat water where they are located. In Belgium, the installation includes his tiny figurines on top of several foot-high wooden poles. Some stare at their smartphones and some look toward the horizon, and they all have inner tubes around their waists. It is supposed to represent the different ways that people look at and prepare for climate change. Another type of art that he has made was part of a collection Cordell named Cement Bleaks. He used metal wires to create a mesh that cast shadows of faces. He has also used metal colanders to create the same effect. He prefers using natural or street lighting in these kinds of installations. And here are my sources.
Excellent, another really good one.
Hello everyone, my choice of artist I'll be discussing today is going to be Tara Donovan. So Tara Donovan is a New York City-born sculpture artist who generally focuses on three-dimensional installments with everyday household items. I chose this sculpture to share with you all because it's a great example of how she combines everyday materials and observes certain angles and lighting to create an intricate, lifelike cluster of clouds out of styrofoam cups. With this sculpture, I believe she demonstrates how careful considerations of angles and lighting can support the intricate and soft appearance of clouds. Donovan also shared with reporters that transparency and reflectivity responds well to light, so she manipulates these key contrasts to replicate atmospheric qualities. Just like this sculpture, Donovan is actually known for taking random items and turning them into unique sculptures, so that's exactly what she did with her home. When she bought her home in Brooklyn, it was a one-story auto body garage, which she then turned into a beautiful home with the help of her architecture husband. And in this next sculpture, Donovan utilized various methods like density, layering, depth, and angling to construct 8 to 13 feet tall installments to replicate tall mountain glaciers. I believe between her as a sculpture artist and her husband as an architect, she's able to find inspiration in 3D artwork where she can manipulate tall stacks of cards into hoodoos. Tara's inspirations were Eva Hess, Richard Serra, and Jackie Windsor. So through these artists, she found common ideas that dealt with the 3D process, which then supported the light and space movement that she strives for in her structures. And for this final sculpture, this texture-driven artwork by Donovan also stands at an impressive height of about 13 feet tall. It focuses on texture and dimensions as its silver fur-like edges provide a transparent glow. These are the key qualities that she focuses in on when she does her three-dimensional effects. As Tara and her team strategically placed each rod into multiple cores, this piece is particularly exemplifies texture in her artwork with each rod placed as it removes the sense of flatness from the installment. A final observation I'd like to share is Donovan's ability to bring nature-themed sculptures to life by highlighting texture, dimensions, lighting, and layering as you walk under the clouds or through the mountains of her artistic imagination. All right, and this was my final slide. Here are my citations, and thank you guys for watching.
All right, that is excellent. All of those are really good. That is really nicely done. You guys have done a great job. So next week, we're going to go over again these last projects. Again, you have a couple weeks to get everything done and to redo what you need to do. And I will revisit stuff. Hopefully by next week, people will be able to start turning in the ancient Mali Kingdom artifacts that they're creating. Remember, that part of the project is you are referencing contemporary items like cell phone cases or whatever, but you're making them as if they look like they are from the ancient Mali Kingdom. And I'm going to see if I can, let's see. Give me a second here. The modules that you need to reference for the Mali work is you learn about ancient Mali through critiquing a horseman in module 4, and you learn more about Sundiata and the art of the Mali Empire in module 7. In this final project, you're going to be referencing, there's a brainstorm exercise in module 7, and I'll show that to you. Hold on a second here. Right here in module 4, you'll see, you go down here to written reflection, critiquing a horseman. And right here, you learn about some of the Molinese art. You're going to use the 4 tools of artistic critique: describe, analyze, interpret, and evaluate. You don't have to write those out to me. You're going to use those to help you identify what elements that you're seeing in this Molinese art that makes it belong to ancient Mali. And then in module 7, right here it says World Tour Africa. You're going to go down to brainstorm, and people have been turning these things in and everything, but the brainstorm is Sundiata and the Art of the Mali Empire. You're going to revisit the art of the Mali Empire, and you're going to consider something from your own experience that didn't exist in the ancient Mali Empire that needed to. Like, for example, cell phone, or people in this class have made things like a model of a bicycle, or of a water park, or of a home with a retractable garage, of go-karts. And these are all scale models that they made, a refrigerator, different things like that. But they make them in such a way so it looks like it belonged and was made by the people of the ancient Mali Empire from 700 years ago in Western Africa. Now, I want to show you, when you look at this, these are elements of the Mali art. I'm sorry, I'm trying to enlarge this and I'm having a little bit of a hard time. There we go. Now, what we can see is none of these are identical. But if we use our skills of description and analysis, we can see these horses' bodies look very similar. They look like they're made with rolls of clay, almost like snakes. The central body of the horse is about the same width and diameter as the legs of the horse, and the neck seems to be the same. The horses' heads are roughly the same shape. The bodies of the people are very similar, where these are not meant to look naturalistic. That's not the goal. They are very stylized, and we can look at other art that was done by people around the area so that we know that the artists were making these choices on purpose. And you will see that around the horse there are these different textures, and you can blow that in and see the textures really clearly. You can go to these to these websites that have these kinds of images. All I did was do a little search for art of ancient Mali. And now I know if I want to do, for example, a cell phone case, I want it to look like this. I want it to look like it's handmade. I want it to look like it's been made by the same people. So what I would probably do is I would not use my actual cell phone. What I would probably do is make some paper mache or salt dough clay, and you can find recipes for that online on YouTube, and use just materials from my own home. I'll make a rectangle type shape like a cell phone, and then I'll have to decide, well, what do I want to do for the keypad? What do I want to do for the vision pad? What do I want to do for the outside texture and everything? To make the clay, I would probably add some color in it, or I would color it with watercolor after I'm done making it, paint it so that it looks like the same kind of spread of color, this warm tone with these red undertones, these rusty undertones, to make it look like terracotta. And I would probably decorate it with imagery like this that you see on the horse and on the riders. There's some very interesting textural patterns that you can see that are pretty consistent with this art of Mali. So we're paying attention to the color, we're paying attention to the texture of the material, we're paying attention to the texture of the design. Now, the reason why we can say with confidence that this artwork was done stylistically like this on purpose is that we can look at other artwork that was done by people in this same general area that is quite a bit more naturalistic. I'm going to turn that off. Go down here, or go up here. You see that there is this general a general consistency of style for the Molinese artists, where the bodies are stylistically portrayed. Chins are very strong, the heads are kind of elongated, the nose is powerful, the eyes look very somber, And then you go over here, we can look at this from a very similar area. We can see that they knew how to do things naturalistically. So naturalism was not something that they didn't know how to do, but it was something that when they were doing work for the people in ancient Mali, there were evidently stylistic conventions that symbolized things that were important to the culture. And so maybe I want to stylize the patterning of my cell phone case. Maybe I'm going to take an old paintbrush and maybe use tufts of hair from the paintbrush to decorate the cell phone case. Look at these kinds of patterns, textural components that the people of ancient Mali used. So I'm using those skills of critical thinking and critical observation to generate an idea of what a cell phone case might have looked like, or whatever it is that you're making might have looked like in the ancient Mali Empire. We can see this. This is an example of ancient architecture. Maybe I can add some of those designs to it. And if you're not going to do something that's three-dimensional, maybe you're doing something two-dimensional, and you could draw some designs like this. Or this. This is an interesting design. Maybe you can do some things like that to decorate your item. And I've had people, like I said, do scale models of a terracotta bicycle. One person made a weight bench. He didn't make it out of terracotta, he made it out of wood, so that it was actually wood that he had drilled holes in and put it onto the rods of his actual weight bench. So, and then he wrapped everywhere where there was padding, he wrapped it with material that looked like it was leather and sheep hides. And it was, still a perfectly functional weight bench, but he had decorated it and covered it up so it looked like it had been made in ancient Mali. So be aware of that and see if you can figure out some of these design patterns and things and incorporate that into what you want to do. I've also had people who made scale models of water parks, a scale model of a home. Whatever it is, it needs to be something that you are aware of in today's world, but you've got to design it and build it so it looks like it belongs. It was made in ancient Mali. And we'll talk about that more next week as well. You can see there's some really interesting design elements that we can see that identify these objects as coming from the ancient Mali kingdom. And that's what you want to do. You want to incorporate design elements into whatever it is that you're making. All right, like I said, we'll talk more about that next week. So I hope everybody, like I said, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I hope you're recovered and you're back home safe. And I will look forward to seeing you next week. Again, I'm going to be finishing up grading over the next couple of days. And whatever you see, if you don't get the grade that you want, or if you need to do some more to get it, you can always resubmit it. And if you need more time than the end of the semester to get everything done, then talk to me and we will coordinate with the Office of Accommodations. All right? Hope everybody is doing really well, and I will look forward to talking to you next week.